And we are live, Wrestle Purist Live, hosted by myself and Joe Hulbert. And we've got a few things to get into today. Of course, the news of AEW seeming likely to be going over to HBO Max, increasing pay-per-view schedule, maybe even 12 times a year, Joe Hulbert. But yeah, big news there with the AEW Max deal. And we've got a few other things to get into as well. We're going to preview some stuff from the weekend. We're going to talk the latest on Jade Cargill. And yeah, man, we're going to get into it all. Like, first things first, please like, subscribe, super chat any questions, any takes, anything like that, and we'll get to them when we can. And hoping everyone's doing good. Hope everyone's doing good on this fine Friday afternoon. Joe Hulbert, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Happy Friday. Moné, we're back. Earlier start time. How weird is this, you and I talking at this time? Very uncomfortable, isn't it? Deeply
I
uncomfortable.
don't know.
The sun is
I could get
peering
used
through.
to it, you know.
Really?
Noon in the States. You know, well, it's
Yeah.
20 minutes past the hour now, but you know, we're
Lunch break,
here.
brother. Yeah.
Lunch
What better
break.
way to spend your lunch than with Joey Bing Bong and Montgomery as they talk through the latest happenings in professional wrestling? That's what I say. So happy to be here, mate.
I tend to agree, to be honest. Good way to spend your afternoon. Good way to spend your afternoon. Just listening to the latest in the world craps, you know. But yeah, let's get straight to it. The thing that has just came out is the possibility of All Elite Wrestling making HBO Max their new home. Of course, for the pay-per-view schedule, it seems like that's going to be. It won't be like the Dynamite, Rampage, Collision thing. Of course, they have TV rights deals to sort those sort of things out. But as far as the pay-per-views goes, it looks like they may be heading over to HBO Max. Andrew Zarian of Wrestling Observer on the Matt Main podcast said that he feels confident to say that HBO Max is going to be the new home for AEW. And he also feels confident to say that they are going to run 12 pay-per-views a year. It's not a prediction. He feels very confident to say, Joe, 12 pay-per-views for AEW. Don't think this was quite the vision fans had at the start for the pay-per-view schedule, but who knows? It could work for them. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not against this. This came up a couple months ago, and when we were kind of just talking it through, like potential shifts in this regard. And I said it then, and I'll reiterate here. I do think it'd be foolish to just shoot it down. There's no way. So it's about like I think it would be challenging, and I've got to be honest. I don't think it's the ideal time to say the least. However, there are positives that come with that shift. Before we go any further into the topic, the big X factor here is the pricing structure, right? Are we talking 12? And I know that Zarian doesn't know you. I'm just speaking loud here, but are we talking 12 events that are just part of your subscription? Are we talking some events that are part of that subscription and then pay-per-views on top of that? Like that's the big X factor in terms of all of this. But in terms of just the content point of view, I do think there are positives to this schedule that we've seen in the past. I mean, lest we forget, some of the biggest boom periods in wrestling history have involved this very schedule, right? So it's not like it's impossible by any means. It would, in theory, add an urgency to their TV, which I do think we've actually seen benefit this last month or so for AEW. So it would add an urgency. It would give more opportunities for guys to wrestle big pay-per-view matches. There are positives, but I have to be honest, it does not currently feel like a product that's crying out for, actually, can we do monthly pay-per-views? We have to be real about where AEW's at right now. So kind of a mixed bag, but the biggest X factor is pricing, I think.
Yeah, just pricing, and it'd be interesting to see how they just juggle the TV with it if they do go to the 12 pay-per-views, because like you mentioned, it's like they're not the hottest at the moment, and that's usually when ideally you'd be making these sort of changes to your schedule and adding to your schedule with the big shows. Right. And as we would assume with them being pay-per-views, they will be big shows. They won't just be like... I doubt they're going to try charging people on HBO Max for stuff like Battle of the Belts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like they're going to be swinging. And of course, like the ticket side of it, they're doing 12 pay-per-views. They're going to want attendances that reflect more than their usual TV taping. So if they are going to go to like a once-a-month pay-per-view schedule, are they going to be able to put around 10k people in an arena once a month? I don't know. Judging off the current ticket sales, I really don't know. I think Wrestle Dream, obviously, it's only been on sale for a week today, public. So I think the pre-sale was last Thursday. and I think they're at around 5K. You know, not on. I don't. Even, I'm not even 100% sure that's going to get to around the 10K mark. So it'll be interesting to see how they juggle a few things if they do move with the schedule like that and add so much
Yeah.
to it. And what would it mean for the product? What would it mean for the ticket sales? What would it mean for this? What would it mean
Well,
for that?
in terms of TV, it's like that is still your bread and bar, right? Is you want the rating
Yes,
to be good. Now,
yes.
obviously, this isn't so much complicated in that because this is kind of in conjunction with that deal because you're under the same umbrella. But I think it's fair to say that 12 pay-per-views would mean you'd have to be a little bit more hesitant to put certain matches on TV, right? Because you've got to build to something every other week. So it's like you wouldn't have those gaps. Like when a Winter is Coming occurs in AEW, they can do a big match on Winter is Coming traditionally because we haven't got pay-per-view for 3 months anyways. We can do a big
Hmm.
match here. If Winter is Coming arrives as a TV special and you have a pay-per-view the next week, that becomes a lot more difficult to navigate. So I do think your TV would need adjusting. To be honest, I reckon their TV has kind of trended in that direction anyway, in the sense that it feels a lot less to me like an event now, like the way it used to. And now it does feel more like a TV show for better and I think at times worse. Um, I honestly, with that in mind, do think we've started to see these pieces go in place, right? All in, added to the calendar. There was a lot of talk about that being intended as a special. As you said, Wrestle Dream. I think this has been in the works for a while, and I actually think that's part of why we've seen the TV ever so slightly adjust in style, because you're not going to be able to do the weekly event system you were doing a year ago when you have 12 actual events to build to. So many moving pieces here, I think.
A lot of them. A lot of them. We've got a couple of super chats. I'm going to get into them before we continue. Keep them coming. Any takes, any questions, anything like that, we'll get to them as soon as we can. $5 from Riley Walker. Appreciate you. I would have Jade debut on Raw and then have her win the Rumble to face Rhea at Mania. She can build a win streak up over Fodder in the meantime. I'm not mad at that idea at all, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm not mad at it. Obviously, I feel
very
like
interesting.
a lot of people were kind of expecting and wanting the Becky Rhea match for Mania, or on one of the big pay per views. Obviously, the only one before Mania. Well, there's two: Survivor Series and Rumble. So we'll see, we'll see. But I would not be mad at. I'm not mad at that pitch. If that's just off the dome.
Yeah, there are some big matches, right? And we'll get into we talk about Jade more, but there are obvious box office matches. How you get to those and how much time you take getting to those is really the key, and that will decide, I think, just how big a hit they are in a lot of ways. So, um, unique timing with this one. I think Jade is kind of a singular addition, right? There are other wrestlers who will jump back and forth, and it's a lot easier for us to go, oh, they'll go in this role. Jade is a talent who's been in the business for like, what is it, like 2 years? Like two years and change. She had an undefeated streak and she was super featured while feeling in a weird way used in the wrong space, right? Like in the wrong
Hmm.
ways. So she's a very unique addition for sure. It'll be interesting how they put this together.
Yeah, I think she's one for money feuds.
Yeah,
And that's kind of the opposite of what she was being used for in
right.
AEW. So. Yeah, no. Codeman's left hand, $5. Appreciate you very much. Any guesses on Jade's asking price if even TK turned it down? I don't know because Dave reports that they were far apart on money or couldn't agree on money. Sean reported that a source told him that it has nothing to do with financial reasons. So who knows what the actual reasoning was? Maybe she wanted to move on to something new and she was kind of not super motivated in AEW or excited about what she was doing in AEW anymore and wasn't excited about the prospect of returning, etc., etc. Or maybe it is just simple as they weren't offering her enough money, didn't give her
Yeah.
what she asked. I don't know. I don't know. But
It's also important with when you talk about like the money part of it. There could also be a sense on Jade's side of things that a move now, while it wouldn't be a huge increase in pay tomorrow, I think considering the conversation we just had, there's absolutely an argument that a 2-year run WWE could increase her value exponentially beyond that for whatever she wants to do beyond wrestling, right? So
100%.
that's kind of always more complex. I haven't got any guess because I genuinely don't know kind of where she's at in that regard, but I think she's gonna be doing okay here pretty shortly.
Yeah. My guess would be that her asking price isn't low.
Yeah, and nor
uh,
should it be, right? Nor should
no,
it be.
definitely not. There's money to be made with that woman, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Will Chisholm, appreciate you as always, brother. $5. That's good for AEW, but 12 pay-per-views, that's big. But would AEW diehards feel some type of way? It all just depends on how they do the balancing act.
Yeah.
How it affects the TV, how well they incorporate into doing the TV and doing monthly big shows, and because it's very different at the moment. Joe mentioned the urgency with the TV. There's been times in AEW's history in the lead up to pay per views when we're a few weeks out that has been a big criticism of AEW, that they
Yep.
lack urgency and building these pay per views up the way that people feel like they should be built up. And you know, this you can't be doing that if you've got pay per views every month. You can't take a week or two off. You can't do that shit. You've got to have storyline progression. You've got to have your stars around, and you've got to sell these pay per views. That's what it's all about. So, very different to their approach to TV. I think we're going to be seeing, and as Joe has already mentioned as well, we've already kind of seen seeds sort of planted with the pay per view
Yeah.
schedule already. So, this summer's been very interesting, man, because they've done Forbidden Door, they've done Blood and Guts, they've done All In and All Out, and it's been very much like bang, 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 bang for AEW,
Mm-hmm.
and that has been for better and for worse at different
Yeah.
times in the build to those shows. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tony Khan and the boys figure it all out,
It's
because
gonna be tough, man. Yeah, I mean,
they're not.
and
Yeah,
I think one of your main concerns has to be that, like, look, inevitably, some of those shows are just not going to hit the same as people expect AEW pay per views to hit. That isn't even a criticism. It's just if you do 12 pay per views, there are going to be a couple that just don't connect that way, right? And so, one of the things that AEW has rightly kind of hung their hat on has been they are prolific on pay per view. Very seldom do they put out a pay per view that isn't quality. It's going to be a lot harder to do that with consistency when you're putting one out every single month. And it's kind of, you really do have to take pride in those events because you don't want to water down one of your biggest strengths as a product, which is
definitely.
we deliver on pay per view. So that's something
Hmm.
they do. If the move is made, they have to really take that seriously because that's a special thing about AEW. You don't want to lose that.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. But yeah, ideally it would come at a different time as well. All of this,
Yeah.
ideally there would be smoking hot right now, selling 7,000 tickets to TV tapings and stuff. But they're just not. They're just not at the moment. So maybe this will be the catalyst of them getting some more momentum again, heating up and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But I don't know. I don't know. It's of course very early. The deal has not been announced yet, of course, and there's still a lot of details that I'm sure our friends over in the US who this deal will affect are waiting to see. Um, yeah, man. But yeah, we'll put a pin in that for now. The
Mm-hmm.
AEW HBO Max stuff. Feel like we spoke about. If anyone's got any questions, of course, get them in. Let's move on to Jade Cargill. Looks like she's WWE bound, Joe. Looks like she's leaving AEW. The contract may even been up as early as this week. Maybe it's up right now. I
My
don't know.
God.
But yeah, just to quickly do a quick brief of the reporting that we've got surrounding Jade Cargill so far. Sean Rossap reported late on Wednesday night after the AEW Dynamite Rampage tapings that Jade Cargill is likely finished up with AEW. Uh, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Statlander beat Jade Cargill clean in their rematch, which will be airing tonight on Rampage. And Sean was told by AEW sources that this is because, as things stand at this moment, Jade Cargill is finishing up with AEW. Sources within both AEW and WWE believe that she is heading to WWE. Dave Meltzer confirmed as much on Observer Radio the next day. PW Insider added that the belief is that her current AEW deal expires as soon as this week, and while there were discussions with Cargill about staying, nothing new was ever agreed. Sean did a follow-up report. Those that we've spoken to within WWE are of the belief that her deal may be structured in a way that could see her sign imminently. So she could be coming into WWE soon. There was also some discussion in AEW that Cargill's holding option years in an AEW contract, but that hasn't actually been confirmed yet. And I don't know if I mentioned this off air or just now, but yeah, it was just now. Someone asked a super chat about it, but Sean added that her decision isn't financially motivated, according to a source. But Dave, today, in the Observer newsletter, said that Cargill is believed to be WWE bound as her AEW contract is expiring, and the two souls didn't come to terms on a money figure for a new AEW deal. Those in WWE believe Jade Cargill is coming and she would be on the main roster rather than developmental NXT. Sounds about right. Yeah, Jade Cargill in the NXT setting would be a bit. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, I know she's got something. She's not polished. You know, she's not a
right.
veteran in the ring. I get it. I get that sort of it. But as a character on your TV, I just think Jade on NXT is a bit. You know.
You're probably right. I just the only reason I'd be tempted by it is like it does feel on some level to be the right long-term investment. Because while it's very, very easy to talk yourself into like, let's just do one of the big Jade matches out the gate and have her beat someone big. But, you know, we have to be honest, there is a different side to that story where it doesn't go as well, right? Like Jade she's super new. There's a roughness around the edges to her work. And we've seen some nights she's been on, some nights she's been off. That's just the reality of being, you know, green. There's no shame in it. So I do think there's like reason to kind of ponder it, but luckily they have the house show deal, and she's probably gonna get paired with probably be Natalia actually, Monty, to pop you. She probably work with her 3 times a week.
Who do they always go to
Yeah,
in
no,
these
I mean, yeah,
situations,
it's fair
Joe
enough.
Hall? But you know, you're
It's
throwing
fair
Natty in
enough.
there. You know what you're gonna get. You know,
Yeah,
it's good shit, and she'll make it look like
absolutely.
$1 billion. You know, Tom McGee versus Bret Hart. You know, we're cooking.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, it probably makes sense she goes to the main roster. This is a really a kind of fascinating deal in that I found this story to be shocking. And then within like 2 minutes, it goes from the shock to like, oh, I guess it makes sense. And there's not many wrestling stories at this point in the game that get that response out of me because, you know, like Jade had spoken previously about her kind of her flirting with WWE, right? They had a tryout and they had some conversations back then. And
They
of
did.
course, last week, and I don't say this to dunk on Jade because God bless, this is real wrestling. But last week we had the story where Jade was like, you know, this is my place. And she just came back. So it was kind of stunning to me when it broke. Very quickly, I think anyone who's watched wrestling will adjust to a mindset of like, yeah, it makes sense. And it's probably the better fit for Jade. And this is something I said to you privately, but I think it's worth discussing. Like, I think that's kind of an indictment of AEW. We all agreed on that. Like everyone that I speak to about wrestling immediately, yeah, but like that's so everyone's being so like lackadaisical about it. Like, yeah, it's a better fit, you know. She's got star power and presence. She's got it's like, you know, those things can matter in AEW too. They don't have to box themselves in and kind of corner themselves for that stuff. So
Absolutely.
I think that's something to be careful with, to be totally honest. With that being said, it does make more sense for her to be in WWE, and there's a lot of money to be made, and there's some mega matches, and you know, I think the ceiling of this deal is big time. I am going to stress again, I do think there are scenarios where it goes less smoothly because traditionally WWE are very, very set in their ways as to how they want their talent to wrestle, and we've seen talent that's, you know, world renowned go under that umbrella and have a little bit of an issue there, right? Adjusting. Jade is a tough one where she's renowned, but not as a worker necessarily. So I do think there's a chance that there's a slight transition period for her moving over. But ultimately, the raw ingredients are super exciting, right? Like incredible all-time great wrestling look, genuine charisma and presence. And you get the sense, your instincts tell you WWE will figure out that recipe in a way that I think AEW struggled to. So it's big business. I mean, it should be a game changer for Jade. I think there's a good chance this like really transforms her as a star. So hopefully so, man. Good for her.
Like you said, the ceiling on this
Yeah.
is kind of crazy to think about, like where this could actually go for Jade as a just as a commodity in the business. You know, she's very unique, and it's just about getting her in front of the right eyes and giving her the right stuff and giving her the right presentation in front of these new eyes. So No, I'm pretty confident that they will be able to figure out something good for her. In terms of kind of the developing her as polishing her more as a talent, especially as like a WWE superstar in the ring. Um, I don't know. Maybe she goes on the house show, Lou. Like you said, throw her in there with Natty a few times or something. You know what I mean? Get this not on TV. It doesn't have
Right.
to be on TV. Go throw it back a little bit. Not everyone's gonna clip it up and put it on social media anyway from the fan cams, but still, I don't think that's gonna kill the pop she'll get when she does debut. I don't think, but
Right.
they've got options. They've got options, and as all the positives that we've mentioned about her are absolutely, very solid reasons for WWE to be interested and potentially get her signed up. So it's a shame she's leaving AEW, and as Joe mentioned, I absolutely agree. It is an indictment on AEW that people are just so quick to just be like, "Oh well, he
Yeah.
probably will work better for her in WWE." Bro, this is a great talent. She don't have to be a 5-star worker to not be to be a great talent. She's a great talent, no matter how you chop it up. She's got great charisma. She's got a great look, and she's got loads and loads and loads of potential. So, you know, um, no matter what type of talent it is, if there's a talent where you feel like they can't reach their or even close to their potential in a company, it's an indictment on the company. So
Right. And it's look, we have to be real. There is absolutely a truth to some talents will fit in certain places better than others. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the point we're trying to get across here is the fact that Jade fits better in WWE because she's like more of a star than a worker, I think is kind of concerning because look, folks, you guys know me. I'm a Roderick Strong stan. I mean, I'm all for the mechanics of wrestling. A wrestling television product is about stars ultimately. So if you're on national TV, you want to be trying to make it work when you have someone who's got star potential. You don't want to just be like, oh yeah, they'll do a better job. Which I'm sure they wasn't internally. I'm just talking more to the
Oh
perception.
yeah, it works both.
So,
You mentioned Roddy Strong. It's like it works both ways. Like the way, like even though he's got like
yeah,
a great character and we're all popping for him at the moment, but like that isn't been the Roddy that we've been used to throughout his 20-year career.
right.
It's an indictment on WWE on their behalf that they couldn't find something for Roddy Strong as good as he is. So even if he
Yeah,
isn't like a great character, but yeah, man, people are always going to fit better in different promotions, and that in itself isn't necessarily the indictment on the other companies. It's
right.
more so like, in my opinion, I don't even think AEW scratched the surface with Jade. Really,
Yeah,
there was glimpses and runs where it was hotter than it wasn't, but in terms of her actual potential, I don't think they really scratched the surface with it. To be honest, they've done some cool
yeah.
stuff with her, but in terms of the end game, you'd think with a talent like Jade Cargill, didn't scratch the surface. Just
I don't disagree because I think it exposed kind of, and we've talked about it a lot, right? Like Tony has a lot of strengths, but he doesn't seem to be a natural promoter in terms of like the way to package and brand things. That seems to be something that they struggle with a little bit.
hmm
And I think you see it with a prospect like Jade, where like the reality is that as much as you can have a Brian Danielson help her on the in ring, she's never going to be a super worker. That's not really the point of a Jade Cargill.
yeah, she don't
The
need to.
idea is that she can be someone that people that don't like professional wrestling generally say, I want to see what Jade Cargill does on Wednesday nights, and tunes in. That's the idea. And that's a little bit idyllic, and that doesn't really happen as much these days. But there are ways to do that with social media and such. And I just think they kind of struggled to, to your point, to maximize that. And look, it is easier said than done. And in fairness, part of WWE's advantage is things they've built up over years, right? They do have a huge presence on social media and such, which will help. But,
That's a
even
big part.
still,
I think that's a big,
yeah,
big part of it as well. Because
absolutely.
Jade, for regardless of whether her matches were, you know, received super well by the critics or the people like ourselves, um, where was I going with this? Even though our matches weren't super well received, yeah,
Mm,
they always done well on social media. Like all of the stuff on
yeah,
social media always do well. She'd always pick up traction. Not quite like Mercedes, but in the same vein. Like she's a social media monster. Whether she appears or anything like that, social media picks you up. Um, Someone done the thing the other week with like Trinity. you know, on Impact. It's like all her clips on social media blow up like 10 times more than the other stuff that Impact
Yeah.
posts. Jade, maybe not so as drastic, you know, in terms of
Right.
compared to the other stuff in AEW, but her social media stuff does really well, and I think WWE will capitalize on Jade Cargill being a super big presence on social media. Like, you know, maybe similar to like what Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is like a whole TikTok
That's
superstar,
crazy.
you know.
Yeah.
So maybe they could pull something like that off with Jade. I don't know, but I think they'll definitely capitalize on that part of her as a package better than what AEW have.
Yeah.
Um,
I tend to agree.
so I think like I said yesterday on the Dynamite review, I'm excited, bro. I'm excited to see Jade Cargill in
Absolutely.
WWE, man. I'm excited to see her come face to face with Rhea one day, Bianca Belair one day, Becky Lynch one day. See what Becky can get out of her, you know. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
I mean,
Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill for the big
I
one,
knew,
Mania
I knew that was
42.
coming.
Let's fucking go, you know.
um, like beyond their analysis, you used the word you're excited, and I co-sign. And I do think it's worth kind of underscoring before we move on the segment. It is nice to have the landscape we have right now, right? I think it's important not to take it for granted. Like it's nice to have some excitement, and there'll be names that go back and forth, and at times it will feel one-sided because that's just the way momentum goes. But as a fan, if you're a Jade Cargill fan, I think you have a lot to be excited about right now. And that's cool because that's kind of where we're at. There's an option now, and hopefully that will allow people to enjoy their favorite professional wrestlers wherever they're currently wrestling. Because otherwise, you kind of get, folks just get stuck where they're at, right? So hopefully it works out, and then there's kind of more optimism moving forward with these things.
Yeah, hopefully exciting times for the Cargill fans, I'd say.
Yeah.
Oh, what else should we get into? More contract stuff. Let's talk about some more contract stuff. Grizzled young veterans are reportedly done with WWE NXT and their contracts are up. This is according to Dave Meltzer. It'd be quite interesting to see where they end up because saying yesterday to Charlie and AO, I think GYV could be a very serviceable tag team, man. Like they're
Yeah.
good, you know. Like they're not the biggest stars. They don't have like huge stock in the game, but people are, you know, people who are into the tag team wrestling and especially the stuff outside of the main roster. Like I believe that they are more than aware of who GYV are. They're very capable, man. Very
Moné,
solid tag team. Zach can
if
talk on the mic as well. Like
absolutely, if only the AEW World's Tag Team Champions were doing an open challenge gimmick right now, in which they were taking on any and all comers among unheralded tag teams. I mean, if only, that would be a nice way to bring them in, wouldn't it? Honestly, man, with what Collision's looking like, and like, obviously, it's going to, especially with how things set up now, it's not going to be as important internally because there isn't one dude like spearheading it. It doesn't seem like that anyway. You could give that time on a Collision. You could give those guys 20 minutes against FTR on a
breakout
Collision.
match.
I would be very surprised if you give that 20 minutes if it was bad. I'd be
Oh,
pretty
you think
confident
you
it'd be
wouldn't?
great,
Gonna say
Yeah,
no way it's bad. You know, it's
yeah.
going to be at
I think it could be
least like
great.
very good, and it could maybe be like genuinely great. You know, it could
Right.
be one of the great FTR matches. I think GYV, like I said, they're just super capable. Super capable. They can get it done in there, brother. You know, give them a big match on a pay per view, they can do it. You know, give them a nice 10 minutes on TV, they can do it. You know, they can. And like I said, Zach Gibson being able to talk is another thing because there's not many people in tag teams these days good with the stick. You know.
Yeah, I would assume they come in. I mean, I I kind of assume that now with all free agents because AEW has approximately 14 hours of television, and so you kind of like genuinely like I'm not even like a super fan of GYV, but what you just described is exactly I co-sign everything you said. Like they're a really good tag team. There's a lot
Jamie's
of
a big fan.
hours,
Recipe
fair.
was head writer, Jamie Ross. He is a very,
Yeah.
very big fan, fellow Scouse man, you know.
I have serious. Do you have any? Are there any impact vibes when you look at GYV? I get some impact. It's not.
Oh,
It's not a
but yeah,
criticism
they'd
necessarily.
kill it over there. They'd kill it
Yeah.
over there. I don't, yeah, because like I said, like as good as they are in ring and stuff, and there's people who are kind of like into tag team wrestling outside of WWE main roster will be familiar with them. They don't have huge star power and stock in the game, you know. So if
Right.
they end up a place like Impact and they go on a world tag team title run there, then I think that could be a very nice fit for them as well. You know, so I don't. We talked about it yesterday as well. It's like I don't think there's like going to be an immediate like demand. You know, like the AEW fans clamoring for grizzled young veterans to be
Yeah.
on the show, and this needs to be sealed immediately. Tony Khan, blah blah blah. I don't think it's going to be anything like that, but I still think they can be a very valuable asset to what they're doing at the moment. Especially like you said, they've got 5,000 hours of TV to do every week. So yeah, man.
Yeah.
Impact. I can see,
Tag
brother. I can
division
see.
is not, it's not quite where it used to be either, if we're being honest. So in terms of heel tag teams, my favorite talking point, you're not exactly loaded with them, so it'd be a nice addition for sure. I think they'll show up on some kind of stage of note here shortly. We'll see.
We will see. It's been like a kind of an update with Edge over the past couple of days.
On this
He was
day,
removed. It was reported that he was removed from the internal roster, Joe. And then a few hours later, it was reported that actually he was removed from the internal roster and then added back to the miscellaneous list of talent, which includes people like your Stone Colds, a couple injured stars like Braun Strowman, etc. You know, but yeah, he's more questions coming up about Edge's future. Is he going to end up in AEW? His contract is reportedly up. Well, he said himself, his contract is up this month. It wasn't said exactly when. You know, a lot of people are looking at Wrestle Dream in Seattle. You know, a lot of people are just looking at AEW in general. A lot of people thinking he may even retire. I seem to be of the belief that he's probably going to stay where he is. You know?
really?
Yeah, I don't. Everyone with AEW, I know how you said you just said you're inclined to think that all these free agents are going to go AEW. There's still a few that I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it,
This
regardless
one's
of the
different.
reports.
Yeah.
So there's Edge, I'll believe it when I see it, bro. Mercedes, there's a lot. Especially around All In, there was a lot of momentum and traction around reports of her going to AEW eventually. I'll believe it when I see it, and that's not to say that I think it's impossible or even unlikely. It's just I'll believe it when I see it. You know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I think there's a lot of money to be made for Edge in AEW simply because I think he'd get a massive offer, go over there and do like basically whatever he wants. And
like Christian.
yeah, like Christian. Look, I love Christian Cage, and I'm glad with what I'm about to say is happening. But Christian gets paid like millions of dollars, and legitimately, he wrestles like 5 matches a year.
Oh,
He's living it, bro.
I was talking. This is probably, but I was talking to Oracle the other day. It's like he's one of the best things about Dynamite,
Yeah, he's
and he's
worth it. I love him.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is what I mean. Like he's just that good. But he is because it just gets because you relate it to like negatives. But he is kind of just just coasting along in there. He ain't got a chip on his shoulder trying to prove a point and
no,
be the world champion. That isn't Christian Cage at this point in his career. He's kind of just popping himself, and we're popping along with him, and it's a good time. It's still great stuff because Christian Cage is just fucking phenomenal,
yeah,
but he's not, he's not, he's not pushing himself to the limit or anything.
yeah. I mean, Edge has got. I think there are some dream matches for him that he would like to explore in AEW, and I think there is probably more importantly the chance to retire alongside Christian or opposite Christian for that matter. I think they'll probably do both. So I kind of felt he was going to go over. This is something that I talked about on the Late Night Grin like absurd amount of time ago. It's like one of my two good predictions over the many hundreds I've got wrong. I made a joke about it and was being playful on Twitter, but I actually genuinely think there's a chance that he's slotted into the Punk role and he's like FTR's older friend. And he
Rated
does kind of his
FTR.
trio. Yeah, and they go like 45 minutes in trios matches, the huge. And I'm sure he wants to wrestle Omega and Moxley. I know he was a big Ambrose fan back in the days. I'm sure he wants to work Moxley. I know Christian and Moxley are tight, so I think he'll come in and do a babyface run as like a legend and work some big matches, and then eventually he'll do some business with Christian. That's been my guess for a while. I totally get why your take on it is. I'll believe when I see it because I can see the Edge being in another company is weird. Like it's just a strange scenario. But my general gut feeling for a while has been he'll show up and do something in AEW.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we'll see how it plays out. I said, I'll
Yeah.
believe it when I see it, but I don't think it's off the table whatsoever for many of the reasons that Joe Hulbert just said right there. Let's get into we'll get into a couple of super chats. Please like the video, people. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, but please do make sure that you like the video if you are joining us on this Friday afternoon. Keep the super chats coming, any questions, any takes, anything like that, and we will get to them. We'll choose them $5. Appreciate you as always. It is crazy that people were saying that Mercedes Moné wanted to work with Jade, and now all she's got is Saraya and Britt Baker. Nasty. Bro, it's that's another reason why I'm like, believe it when I see it with Mercedes, because it's like, who's the match that's gonna make her be like, I need this, I need to do this. Like,
I think she sees the Saraya match differently than you and I do. Quite dramatically differently from what my very limited understanding is, that to her that is like a big one. Now again, doesn't mean it'll be good, but that has been the understanding for a while, is that,
I can believe that. I can believe that.
I think that's been like penciled in for 2 different shows at this point. So I think that's why the belt's on Saraya to begin with. Now, even still, to Will's point, the idea of Jade and Mercedes being like ships in the night who just go past each other is kind of crazy. Because I remember when Mercedes first got out of her deal, on these shows talking about like, wow, if you could put Jade and Mercedes together, that's a big time fight.
The poster.
The idea that they just go past each other is kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think Mercedes will do something. It's just, like, she's obviously going to be a very specific type of deal. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. Mercedes is going to do what she wants to do, which, oh, how? That's real graps. She'll have a few dates, I think, with AEW. You've been very hesitant to commit to that, which I respect. You got it right in January, so you're sticking to your guns.
I was on the boat with Dave Meltzer on that one.
You were.
I was like, she ain't coming in, bro. I was kind of popping myself with it,
You were, yeah.
But
That's very funny.
Yeah, I'm definitely can believe more that she'll do a couple dates. But even still, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I think the idea of her signing a contract there is like I'm laughing. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be mad at either of those scenarios. But yeah, appreciate you, Will. Willie 999, appreciate you. Talking about differentiation from WWE when WWE is hot and you can't just be better than. How are monthly pay-per-views different? 5 pay-per-views is a different product in terms of how to build them. How can you stack TV and how you can stack TV?
Yeah, it's not
quite a lot.
It's not different anyway.
It's not. It's not much different anyway. Yeah, like you said.
And again, this is always
it flies under people's noses, bro. They don't want to hear it. People don't want to hear it.
Brother, it's a lazy criticism, and that's why I mostly avoid it. But there are an increase in WWE-esque tropes on their TV right now, and I do think they are really struggling for an identity. And I don't say that in a way of like, oh, they're doing that sports entertainment BS, because like wrestling's wrestling. But I do think if you put the products side by side, they are closer right now, not just in quality, but in like feel, to me anyway.
Than they've ever been.
As they've ever been. Yeah. And a part of that is WWE getting better, but there is also like,
we're getting kind of
and we're getting the weeds here, Monty. But if you notice like the way AEW TV matches, you notice how differently they're produced now? How much more restrained they are. Do you remember back in the day where they just would ring the bell and go for it?
Yeah. But there was more. I believe the TV show that had the most matches that Dave Meltzer rated this week was NXT.
Yeah. I even see it on my nerdy spreadsheet when I do the AEW shows. There was a time, it was like February. There'd be like 2 4-star matches on Dynamite every week. I know it's not anyone else's concern other than mine on my spreadsheets, but that time is gone. I don't think that's happened for a while.
It slipped away, bro. Look, I remember very much like you just said, like the matches are just produced differently now. Like it used to be, like it used to be like AEW is where you see wrestling, and people could just go balls to the wall, go for it, and obviously WWE on the flip side was very different. You know, in the McMahon era, you know,
Yes.
you'd get low. You people forget like how bad it was, especially in that sense. I think that might be like the thing that people forget how bad it was the most, like that part of it, because like
Mm-hmm.
people would be people rematch after rematch after rematch, screwed finish after screwed finish, all on the same show. No matches getting any time whatsoever. You know, main events not delivering what was promised, etc., etc. Like all this shit. And now that it's more like steady, you know, the people that you want to see wrestle a bit longer tend to wrestle a bit longer. You know, like
Right.
Alpha Academy, if I have a tag match, or Imperium have a tag match, they'll get a bit of time with it. Chad Gable versus Gunther go 15 or whatever, you know, and stuff like that. So people are getting what you expect from them. But so that kind of closed the gap in that sense. And AEW now is they're not as over the wrestlers wrestling, you know.
Yeah.
It's the gap's closing,
I think it's
people.
concerning, mate. I do, and like
It is.
I've been saying it so often on shows recently that I'm always hesitant because like I don't want to be the guy who beats that dead horse over and over again because it is boring at some point. But like, look, you have to learn from history in some ways, and the last company that was firmly, you know, kind of cemented as the number two, TNA did not struggle for a lack of content or a lack of quality. They just persisted to do like we just did WWE, but like on a lesser budget. AEW never had that problem before to me. They never felt like WWE light. And I'm not saying they do feel like that now. What I'm saying is I do think there are some trends in that direction. And I think that's concerning personally. And it's small things, you know, like even twice in one show, 2 straight matches having guys' music hit while guys are wrestling. It's like it sometimes feels like I'm watching an AEW skin of Raw. And as someone who's watched the show for the whole basically its whole existence, I never felt that way until like the last, I would say, 4 or 5 months. So I think that's something to watch. I haven't really answered Woody's question here. My answer is it's not different, I think.
Yeah, that is the answer. We
Yeah.
answered it. It's like it's
I
not
don't know.
really different, and
And it's like you don't want to be whenever you do these topics, these bigger pictures, you don't want to be dramatic about it, right? Because it is like
we try.
it's easy to get lost in that stuff, and in a vacuum, you could still watch the shows most weeks. That was a good show. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying the show sucks. I just think it is noticeable that it has lost a little bit of its quirkiness and identity as a product. And some of that quirkiness wasn't even all positive. Like some of those insane shows Tony would do where he would have a 4.5-star match and be like, cut to the back, someone just got the shit kicked out of them. You know, like you'd nitpick it, but that was who they were, right? They were like this adrenaline rush. It was like a party. It don't feel like a party to
Yeah,
me
it
right
used to
now.
be like that's what AEW used to be. It used to be like this pro wrestling party festival,
Yeah.
you know, with great wrestling on it and all this and that. And you still get you still get like the great match every few weeks and stuff. But before it used to be, you know, you was getting like 2, 3, 4-star matches every Dynamite, you know.
Right.
And of course, they was, you know, it's just very different now.
It is. And it's like, and
The
again,
matches
it's,
are still decent. It's like, but there'll be like a 3.5-star match and a, you know, a little
yeah.
3.25. Like it's not, it's just not the same. Not to like make it too nerdy with the star rating side of it, but that's obviously That's obviously reflective of you know, the match quality and even like maybe the time and just how the matches are produced a certain way and
Yeah.
stuff. You know,
It's just,
um,
you know, and it's one of those things where again, it's like if you watch the show every week and like the show, I don't even disagree with that. Like I think the show generally is good most weeks. I'd give it a 7
so
most weeks, you know?
yeah, so
But it just I definitely think there is a topic here in sense when you talk about the bigger problems, when you look at the attendance and stuff like that, which again, as I've said before, I'm no expert on those things, but I don't think it'd be foolish to look past what we're talking about here because I remember the start of this year, Manny and I would do a watch along for Dynamite every week, and it would have some of that party vibe where um, these matches would be like insane. There was a TV episode, Monty, in February, I think it was, maybe January. Roosh and Dragon had a bloodbath in like the
oh
middle of a Dynamite, like just in the middle of it, just
yeah,
because you know.
that's Dynamite for me
Yeah, and
anyway.
it's like,
That's AEW Dynamite.
yeah, and with love to our guys and Charlie who do it on Wednesday, I couldn't do that watch along show anymore because it is now just a TV show. And it's not a bad TV show, but it doesn't have the same like you got to see this match. To me, it doesn't anyway. So it's a really, to me, it's been a time of change, and I think there are positives within that. I want to be clear because I do think there are things you get from the more TV show approach that help. You should be able to do more with characters and telling those stories. So I get it. But you got to keep your own identity too. That's important because otherwise you're just doing a lesser version of the other company's show, and they can do more than that. Goes without saying.
That needs to be the meeting. Everyone in AEW was talking about this Punk and Elite meeting. That Tony needs to sit down with his heavy hitters, get a big whiteboard, and just write in the middle of it, who are we?
I genuinely believe this. Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. Like, because again, we've gone way off the rails here. But again, so what Willie's referencing is it's 2 years ago you could do the variety show thing, and you could do it so much better than WWE because that show was bad.
Yeah.
Whether whoever's watching this show now, whether you think AEW is better or WWE is better, the point is there is now a conversation and a debate. And what that means is, as the secondary company, is the alternative, you can't just hang your hat on we're better than, because now there's a debate about that. So how are we different then to the original question? That, to be very clear, is not an easy question to answer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys this is actually Monty and I were in the meeting. We go, well, let me tell you, it's hard, right? But until you can answer that question, it, to me, is going to be a lot harder to get a real grip on the industry because
100%.
WWE is already producing their 6 hours of TV, right? And for a lot of people, you need to give them a reason to add to those hours. Not you and I necessarily. We're deep in this. We're doing a wrestling podcast right now. But the person who watches Raw every week, why do I need to watch on Wednesdays? What am I going to get that's different? That's a question that's always worth asking, I think, as the alternative company. So there's some puzzles to solve, I guess.
And even just like the branding side of it and stuff. Dave Meltzer done a really extensive write-up in the Observer newsletter today. If you are partial to reading Dave's work, I'd definitely recommend going to seek it out. And he's just talking about kind of like AEW's business lately, and just they're in quite the spot at the moment, aren't they? In terms of just identity and branding and all these things like Dave mentioned in this write-up that I was just talking about. That there was many people that just as an example he was giving it, because it is a big problem that I think they have promoting in the local markets. Apparently, a lot of people were saying in Cincy in Ohio that they didn't know until the day of that AEW was in their town.
Right.
In WWE, the week of, even the week before, people are all over the local radio. They're doing all this promotional stuff in the city. They're doing this. They're doing that. People know that WWE is in their city, bro. Whereas AEW, from a branding point of view, there's no AEW is coming to your city, and there's nothing that people can associate with that, and that's just one part of it, and that comes from not knowing who you really are, what direction are you going with your branding, what's the plan, what are we trying to convey to our audience, who are we,
Right.
So then Tony Khan, he does a lot. And with the pace of the wrestling business, it's like you've got to do 3 shows a week. You've got this pay-per-view. You've just booked that. You've just had to follow CM Punk because of all this drama. This is happening. That's happening. Jade's leaving. It's crazy, And I can understand, getting, you're too in it to kind of step back and look at, fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
in a big
absolutely.
picture, broad picture sense, what are we doing? But yeah, meanwhile, WWE's. I've heard talks of that. They've got it kind of a rough outline drawn out for their big matches for the next, basically up to Mania. Basically, is what I've heard talk of. But those are the things that you hear talk of now. Obviously, I can't confirm that. I can't report that or anything like that. But a few years ago, you would never even hear that talk. Whereas with AEW, everyone was kind of praising Tony Khan, especially at the start for like long-term booking. Everyone will be able to reference when Tony Khan in the media scrum was like, "These are going to be my first 4 champions," and they were, and it was mapped out, and they knew what direction they were going in. It's like it's going to be Jericho, it's going to be Jericho, Marks, Omega, Hangman. I think that was it, and like
Yeah.
that made sense, and there was a progress. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like Hangman being the last of that 4 makes a lot of sense because you're building him up at the same, like at the time of this. Jericho being the first champion makes all the sense in the world because he was the big name you had at the
He
start.
established it. Right.
Moxley comes in and he's the new big star. Do you know what I mean? He just came from the Shield in WWE. He's just, you know what I mean? He's a huge name. It was almost surreal at the time that they even had him. He wins the belt. Kenny Omega. He wouldn't have been AEW without a Kenny Omega world title reign at some point. Then you go over it's like your real homegrown kind of, this is what we can build with someone, Hangman, and it's like that direction feels a million miles away now. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of vision for where they're going. So
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you with confidence who I think is going to be like the next champ after Max. It's like I
I'm
don't
not
see
sure
Cole.
they could.
I don't think Cole's gonna. I don't think
No.
Cole's gonna beat Max, and he shouldn't be predictable. Where it's like, oh well,
Right.
obviously Eddie Kingston's going to beat Max in December. Like that shouldn't be the case either. But you should be like, oh, this guy's on the come up and he's gonna. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know
No,
what
yeah. I think,
the long term vision is at the minute.
I think you nailed it earlier when you said about being too close. I think it's very hard to kind of figure out a war, quote unquote, when you're fighting battles every day, right? And that's kind of the process, and it's difficult. And I think it's important to stress that. And I said it earlier, like it is very, very challenging. And wrestling history has taught us a lot about the cycles of bookers and the way that things can change very quickly for bookers. And I think there's always lessons to be learned from that. So I think it's clear to me right now that it's been a rough, I'd say, stretch, honestly, creatively. It doesn't mean there aren't good things. There are always good things. I think there are positives to take from the last couple of weeks. Even if you and I haven't been as high on those shows as a lot of folks have, I do think there are positives to take. They have felt more focused. And, you have to kind of rebuild slowly. What we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about here is much bigger picture, but however you look at it, folks, this is not going to be a quick fix in terms of let's shoot one angle, change one title, and next thing you know, we're doing a 0.4 every Wednesday. It's like it's baby steps, it's getting things in the right place and kind of figuring out these things day by day. It's AEW's had a pretty crazy, I would say, 2 years and change, where their promotions changed in about 4 different ways in that time, and they are absolutely entitled to feel some of the shockwaves from that. That's just kind of the way it's going to go. You don't come out of those things unscathed, to say the least. But hopefully the conversation we're having here and the conversation I see among some of the fan base is present internally, and they can work through some of these things and get back to where a lot of us believe they still can be. There's a lot to like about AEW right now, and there's still a lot more for them to be doing. So hopefully things get better here shortly.
Yeah, it's a lot of big picture stuff I think they need to figure out. And like I said, Tony Khan, he can be forgiven for being kind of just like in the moment and just doing on to the next,
Yeah.
on to the next, on to the next. But maybe conversations need to be had, Will Chisholm, $5. Appreciate you as always. I'm just shocked that she returned last week and the next week she's gone. Crazy how fast this happened. Of course, that's in reference to Jade Cargill. Yes, as Joe mentioned, look, last week she was saying, I don't see myself anywhere else or something along those lines. Tony Khan's a great boss, this and that, And her leaving doesn't mean she thinks Tony Khan's a shit boss or anything. No, but I'm just saying, like, it's crazy how, that was coming out last week. And now she's reportedly on her
Things
way.
move quick, brother. Things move very quick.
We'll choose them again. Appreciate you, $5. It's crazy how when her Impact deal is done, Naomi might go back to WWE and Tony Khan might not try to rally together. Bro, if Tony Khan wanted Trinity, she would already be in AEW. Like she wouldn't be in Impact right now, would she? He He's just clearly from what we've seen. I don't know anything, I haven't asked him about his interest in Trinity, Naomi, whatever you want to call her. But I just if he wanted her, he would have had her by now because she's ended up in Impact and she's working a full schedule and everything with Impact. Like I know the schedule's different, but still, it's not like AEW is doing the WWE schedule, is it? If he wanted her, he'd have her by now.
It could be a commitment thing, though, not in terms of schedule, in terms of contracts, because everyone has kind of heard that Tony is pretty firm with those things, right? Unless it's a very special case, he wants some years and get someone on paper. I don't know what Trinity's deal looks like with Impact, but they have been a lot more keen to do shorts. I mean, even Mia Yim, who's not the star that
I think she worked a 3 month, wasn't it?
Right, exactly. So that could be a fact, but generally, I think there's truth to your point, which is that with Tony's. With what he has available to him, you would assume that if he wanted to make the deal, he could have made it.
Man.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't a all elite graphic, bro, like get her on fucking, I don't know, she can work Athena or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think we would have already seen it in AEW or Ring of Honor or something if Tony was truly like interested in rallying to get her on his shows. Will again, $2 appreciated. Jade versus Cole, we're going to be nasty. The real dance. Listen, brother. Gonna create some magic, on a premium live event.
Yeah, it could be good. We'll see.
Probably. That's on 84. Appreciate you as always, brother. 199. Christian Edge, first team to beat Darby and Steen. I can buy into that.
That's a hell of a match right there, right?
I can buy into that. Definitely.
Edge and Sting in the same match feels like preposterous to me. He just feels insane. Yeah, like that's a really cool match. I like that one a lot. It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Sting. Fucking love Sting. What I saw yesterday? It was like 25 years ago to the day. And like when Arn introduces Ric Flair back to WCW and they're all in the black suits and everything. And he's talking about when Sting's crying in the back, that's real.
That promo is insane.
I love Ric Flair, man.
That's incredible. Yeah. So that's the Great Tape Machines once described that as the greatest segment in the history of Monday Night Wrestling. And honestly, that is an all-time great segment. I mean, that reaction is incredible. So
he comes out, he's got tears in his eyes.
Of course, yeah.
Of course he has. Oh, man. Ric Flair,
Nitro, brother.
But yeah, Sting. We love Sting, man. Sting's it's just cool to see him. It's always cool to kind of reel off those sentences like you just did, just kind of like Sting and Edge.
It's weird, man, yeah.
It's crazy. You say that all the time. Anytime Sting wrestles, it feels like, and it's awesome. It's a good thing. You see that those acclaim belts that just got released. Someone mentioned it in the live chat earlier as well, but I'm looking at the tweet now from All Elite Wrestling. It's like the acclaim belts are now available. The scissor ones, the pink ones, $4,999, Joe Hall. But when will you be
saving? Let's start saving up. I mean, they're pretty cool belts. That sounds a little bit excessive, but I mean,
yeah, they should be real gold. Shit.
Well, hold on. Man. Made an investment, bro.
Yeah, man. Shout out Sting. Will Chisholm. $5, appreciate you. The world's changed when NXT is having 3 matches close to 4 stars. We would laugh at that 2 years ago. Yeah, but 5 years ago, we wouldn't have. Like it's NXT.
Good point.
NXT. You say AEW has been through a lot of changes in recent years. NXT is fucking.
Yeah, you're right.
It's very drastic.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget that they just decided one day, like, nah, fuck all this. We're fucking paint splash, Bron Breakker, Von Wagner, all these guys all debuting on the same show. It was crazy. It was.
That was an unhinged time in WWE. Yeah, I don't watch it closely. I just kind of follow from afar for match guide purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The quiet rebuild of NXT is low-key a really kind of interesting story, I think, that I'm not equipped at all to tell because I've seen legitimately 2 matches from it. But there has been this what feels like an overnight shift in the perception of NXT and the quality of the show that I'm kind of baffled by is the word, I think. Like every week there's a match on NXT that gets acclaim, gets rave reviews.
Right,
Yeah,
this
it's
week,
interesting.
pretty much every match was like good for what it was. So like the Creed brothers wrestled Malik Blade and Idris Enofa, and it was just
Okay.
like it was just a nice sprint with just athleticism. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great, it was a nice bit of business. Julius hit Enofa with a clothesline, and he decided to take the bump directly on his neck. Kind of
That
awesome.
sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's good shit. What else did we have? Heritage Cup. Fraser and Tozawa worked a really, really good, like, 2-minute match. No, it was like 3 minutes, ruled.
That rules.
Elsewhere in the Heritage Cup, Tyler Bate versus Axiom was pretty tremendous as far as TV matches go. Then Ilya versus Wesley opened the show. I think Dave gave it 4.25 stars, Then the main event, I thought the main event was tremendous.
I
Obviously,
haven't
Tiffany
seen it
Stratton
yet.
versus Becky Lynch. I thought it was tremendous for what it was, and Dave didn't rate it apparently. So
Beast.
but a lot of
He
people,
knows his gimmick.
a lot of people were on Dave's back about that one. But I personally thought Tiffany versus Becky was tremendous for what it was meant to be.
I'm gonna watch it at some point this weekend.
Like I said, I just reeled off all those matches. There was also like a 6-man tag, which was perfectly fine. Mainly more of an angle, but still. Yeah, man.
They had some good ones
it's
recently,
on the up,
man.
brother. It's on the up.
Yeah, they had some good ones. It's kind of amazed me how quickly it feels like it's turned around, because it felt like it was only just a few months ago where NXT was like, I remember you rattling off like a 10-minute rant to me about it. You was disgusted by it. Remember the show when what's their name? The tag team won Gallus, when they won the belts, and you were just like, this is the end. Get rid of it. Finish it. It's all over. So he's come back. The Empire struck back.
Listen, it's back. It's very different. Like we was just saying, it's been through a lot of changes, brother.
Yeah.
It's like this latest era. This is the bounce back. This is the perception's changing online. People are checking stuff out for the first time. Whether that's an Ilya Dragunov match or a Tiffany Stratton one with Becky Lynch. People are checking it out for different reasons.
The way you did that, the way you,
No, but
that's
the difference. It's like some people will be like, "Oh, yeah, Ilya Dragunov had a 4.5-star match with Trick Williams. I got to see it," or Wesley, who's another a well-known good worker.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might tune in for that. Then on the flip side, they might tune in for like a Tiffany Stratton Becky Lynch match because of the main roster star coming down, working with someone who's bright and upcoming. So there's different valid reasons for people to actually try the show again, give it another chance if they're tuned out for 2.0 and all that sort of stuff. So, this new era, this momentum they've been getting on, there's definitely something to it, and the ratings have been reflecting that. Dynamite, Becky and Tiff drew a fucking Dynamite number for their match.
That was impressive.
Over 1 million. I know some of it was overrun, but over 1 million people and a 0.31. That's a Dynamite rating, bro.
Yeah.
So it's they're on the up. It seems they're on the up, and the use of main roster talent has had the desired effect in pretty much every case they've wanted it to. Like Seth drew a big rating, Becky drew a big rating, Dom draws big ratings when he wrestles. Maybe not so much when he's doing the cameos and stuff, but when he wrestles, people tune in for it. I think Rhea drew when she was down there as well. You'd assume so, considering she draws on the main roster. One of the big stars in the game at the minute. It's working, man. It's working. Shout out Shawn Michaels.
If you want, yeah.
Cody Wills, 199, appreciate you. Impact 1000 was a hoot last night. Had a hot crowd. I saw clips and the crowd did seem hot, so that's cool to see.
Did you see the reaction that Hardcore Country got last night when it hit?
I was hoping that's where you was going.
They took like a long shot of a wide shot of this building as Hardcore Country played, and Tom Phillips, Tom Hannafin, credit to him, he put it over the way he should. The business just picked up, we got a legend in the house. That was I've only seen clips. I do intend to watch that because
You're gonna watch the Dudleys.
I don't have a great deal of nostalgia for TNA at this point, but I've really grown to appreciate the way that they celebrate their history, specifically the weird parts of their history. I think they do an incredibly good job of that. So on that level, I kind of just want to watch it just for the parts in between the matches, where they kind of put themselves over and pat themselves on the back, because that's what wrestling's all about. And they take a lot of pride in who they've been for the last 20 plus years, which I think is admirable considering what they've been for the last 20 plus years. So shout out to TNA, Impact Wrestling, all that good stuff.
Man, it's definitely 1,000 episodes is 1,000 episodes, no
It's
matter
impressive,
how you
yeah.
know. It's many have called them the cockroach of the business. They just won't die. And
Hey, look, God bless.
God bless.
A lot of pro wrestlers have got paychecks and exposure out of that company's existence, and wrestling's better for them still being around. So good for them.
Yeah, man, good for them. Also, gonna check out this Dudley Boys business. Chris Sabin won the X Division title because, of course, Impact 1000. Chris Sabin wins the X Division title again. It's could have predicted that one a couple years out. But God bless. Good for them. Match 184, 199. What would AEW look like if Punk never signed?
That's a fascinating question, man. Because they were red hot. Because if you're just taking Punk, and now look, folks, before I go any further, I think you can, us two well enough to know we're not like, we're both CM Punk fans, but you have to be fair and objective about it. You're taking him out of the scenario, but they're still getting the Bryan and Cole 1-2 punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, Moné. Probably lower highs, but higher floors. What do you reckon? That's my instinctual reaction. He obviously gave them gates and houses they never would have had without him, and honestly, wrestling that only he could provide in certain senses with the MJF feud. But you also wouldn't have had the fallout with the lows of the CM Punk run that we've experienced. So I reckon it's somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, probably something like that. Because I think a lot of the issues that have led to AEW in terms of where they are now, in terms of the negatives anyway, like the ticket sales and the stuff like that, and even like the ratings have been they've held steady like throughout the past few months and stuff, but compared to like year on year, like they're not anywhere near the peak of where they were. So I still think like a lot of the things that have led to that would still be prevalent now.
Probably,
like not the brand, like what we said, the identity and branding thing as well. It's just
it wouldn't be as like turbulent as it's been because a lot has gone, but it's still the kind of fundamental issues in terms of creatively and stuff don't change overnight, right? Like that would have just familiarity breeds contempt, and I think the more people got used to Tony's booking and its tropes and its quirks, I think you probably would have seen that decline. It's an interesting one to kick around, though. I have a feeling it's a question that will be asked a lot in the coming months and years, to be honest. It's a pretty fun one.
100%. Masson, again, appreciate you as always, brother. 199. Excuse me. Roddy versus Joe, real worldwide pilled match. Thoughts? I really liked it, but it just didn't go as long as I would have hoped it to because they've done such a long angle at the end. And of course, I understand why they did that. And bygones will be bygones, But I liked what they did for the time they had. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I really like the match. Joe is not someone who's going to give you a 20-minute main event match at this point, right? Like, I think it's pretty clear he has his limitations, and that is what he is. He's an older guy. Roderick Strong was incredible in this match. I know it's bordering on a bit how often I say this, but seriously, watch the way he bumped for every single thing Joe did and the energy that he brought to the match and the motion he created for Joe, which I thought was an issue in Joe's prior tournament matches.
He's like character work and shit,
Yeah, he's unbelievable, brother. He really is. I really liked it. I announced before the bell that it was a sanctioned match for the Joe Holbrook Promotions World Heavyweight title. So Joe's remain champion. I would like to announce here, but way in advance, that MJF is not ranked contender. Next week's match is not for the Joe Holbrook Promotions World Heavyweight title. Absolutely not.
You're waiting on that. You're trying to, I've tried to help you out with booking the
Yeah. Yeah.
a man that is referred to as the Axe sometimes.
Yes.
So we're gonna see if Samoa Joe can get in there with him.
Yeah. It's a prestigious prize, man. We don't want to just throw it under anyone, right?
Let's
But
talk
no,
about Samoa
I really
Joe.
like the match. I'm a pretty big fan. I know if you've noticed, though.
Let's talk about Samoa Joe just for a minute.
Yeah.
Big match Joe era. That's what I'm hoping for. Just wrestled Punk in Wembley, and now he's going into the. Obviously, we have the Shane Taylor thing in the middle, but now he's going into this MJF thing. Big match, big match. Maybe main event in the pay per view at Wrestle Dream. You'd assume, and yeah. Next up, let's keep this going, brother. Big match Joe era, and let's throw him in there with a Danielson or Eddie Kingston next.
Mm,
Let's keep this momentum of Joe being taken
yeah.
as a top of the card, real contender, etc. Let's keep it going. Let's keep him as a heavily featured heel on the programming because he's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I know a big one for him that he's talked about a lot is Moxley. He feels
Oh,
like, he got a couple things to do with Ambrose, but he didn't, Moxley's a different guy, right, altogether. And
absolutely.
I think him and Moxley is really intriguing and fun, both on the microphone and in the ring. I think they could work a
Mm-hmm.
really exciting 10-minute bloodbath, honestly. I like the names you mentioned. Eddie Kingston's a natural one. Eddie mentioned Joe when he did his promo on Punk, right? His famous promo on Punk. He mentioned Joe. And Joe kind of represents the the centerpiece, the golden child of a generation where Eddie was like the ugly stepchild, right? Like he was kind of the
Yeah.
outside looking in a lot, and they had a couple matches. They had a match that is not so good. In fact, Eddie and Joe did. I don't think they've interacted since when Joe went back to the Indies in 2015. I think they had like a triple threat with, I can't think of who else was in that. It may have been like Josh Alexander or someone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my point being, Eddie and Joe is a natural matchup that's really been very seldom explored in any which way. There's a lot to be done there. So I agree with you, man. I think that's Joe's best role, selling people on fights. I've already seen people start to do the classic Joe tradition of actually maybe he should win the belt, which is incredible. Great bit. Always love to see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you, man. I think that's a much better usage of him than just like TV champ.
I was gonna say that Ring of Honor television champ. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. He's a prize fighter, right? He's going to pick fights, win some, lose some, but he's going to fight. That's the sell.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We love him. We do love him.
Yep.
All right, before we get into the previews, we're just going to run down the cards and stuff. But before we do that, we've got the unfortunate news of the WWE layoffs, which are a result of the Post Endeavor acquisition. But yeah, there's been some layoffs. There was an email sent out by Nick Khan yesterday, basically pretty much a warning, to be honest. It was, there's going to be some cuts. I'm obviously paraphrasing that. There's going to be some cuts, and everyone was asked to stay at home as well, so they can, basically do the business that they need to do, make the calls that they need to do. I believe the reasoning was so the people can have privacy when they get fired, But me and Joe were talking about it. Maybe they should just let people come in, do it face to face, like adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, some of the first casualties of this would be Jamie Horowitz, Executive Vice President of Development and Digital, Catherine Newman, Executive Vice President and Head of Marketing, Amanda Bloom, WWE Director, Enterprise Master Data of Governance, and there's also, I guess, don't even know if you'd call it a silver lining, but PW Insider also reported that the belief among those spoken with is that the WWE roster, the production team, on-air talent, and those who work with talent such as producers, coaches, etc., would not be part of today's cuts. It's also been reported whilst we have been live, should I say, that both the WWE Network and podcasting divisions have been hit with employees being let go, but it hasn't been confirmed who or how many from those areas. Among WWE employees, there has been talk that already 40 to 50 employees are gone, potentially more. So there has definitely been as unfortunately expected,
Yeah.
a massacre at those WWE offices today. So very unfortunate. like I said, the only silver lining I guess you can take from it is that, as far as reports go, talent or on-screen people won't be involved in today's cuts at least. But there was a report from Nick Hausman that let me pull up the actual phrasing. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's kind of a bummer, isn't it, Joe?
It is, but unfortunately, as you said, it's something we kind of been expecting because it is the reality of mergers. It's a very ugly reality and a very cold reality. It's one that none of us particularly appreciate, but you could see it coming from a mile away, right? I mean, it's the reality of how these things often go. It's a shame. Hopefully, everyone can land on their feet and move on kind of as swiftly as possible. So you can hope for, right?
Yeah, so that's a few people. It happens when it's talent releases, and I guess it happens now with these office releases. You see, and a lot of people are saying Tony Khan should be keeping an eye on
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
some of
I
these
mean,
releases.
some of
Head
the
of
things we talked
marketing.
about, yeah, exactly. Some of the things we talked about in this show, I'd imagine, could be assisted in that regard. It's always hard to say with folks that are behind the camera, right? Because it's like
Hmm.
you don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine if there's been that many releases, I would imagine there are people that can help out elsewhere in wrestling.
Absolutely.
But also, in fairness, a lot of those gigs also transfer well beyond wrestling, right? So I'm sure that a lot of
Hmm.
those people aren't they aren't desperate to stay in the wrestling business. I'd imagine. So
Hmm.
it's always hard to say with those things.
Yeah. But I guess on questions of talent releases and stuff, Nick Hausman reported that while inquiring about whether there would be talent releases as well as the expected. Sorry, starting this again. Nick Hausman reported that while inquiring about whether there would be talent releases as well as the expected staff releases, a WWE source said that major cuts are expected to the WWE main roster and NXT brand. It was not explicitly said that the cuts would be coming tomorrow, meaning today, but they have been planned for some time. One source spoken with speculated that Endeavour could lay off a bunch of Stanford employees tomorrow, meaning today, and then wait to release talent at a later date, but that was purely speculation. So there is at least some people in WWE that are expecting some talent releases as well, which is of course is super unfortunate. And it's I believe that there was that BWE they reported something on it as well. Like
Yeah,
there's multiple talent that are aware that they are under the expectation of what's expected of them and stuff like that, and a few other things like that. So it'd be interesting to see, interesting, disappointing, however you want to put it, to see who
of
they end
course.
up
Yeah,
pulling the trigger on.
yeah,
Ideally it would be none of them, and people get to just see out the contracts at home if they're not going to be
absolutely.
used.
Yeah,
But this is the way the cookie crumbles, I guess, as unfortunate as it is, and you
yeah. I think we'd
know,
all prefer that the contracts be fulfilled, but I think that horse, that ship has sailed, I should say, in terms of that place. So I do think it's worth seeing, like, not that it makes it better on a moral point of view, but it's worth waiting and seeing how these cuts look because at the height of the kind of pandemic releases, it became like it was like schizophrenic, right? Like guys would return to TV and get cut that week. It was, I mean, the Alistair Black one is the obvious example, and there were some heavy hitters who released. It would be interesting. It feels like the wrong word, but like I do wonder if the Endeavor merger brings more releases like that, or it would be ones that, in fear of sounding callous, are more like the releases we saw yesteryear, right? Where it's like guys that we don't see on TV very often. Um, that doesn't make it any better morally, but it is kind of something we came to expect with WWE years previous. So I think we all expect cuts at some point, just because kind of the reality of how they operate. The question will be what those cuts look like and what kind of talent we're talking about. So we shall see.
hmm, Joe Hall,
Yeah.
but yeah, just to kind of wind down, we'll do a little preview of what's going on this weekend in the major companies. So we got WWE Smackdown tonight. John Cena, he is back again. Of course, he returned a couple of weeks ago. He's been gone for a week, but now he's back for 7 consecutive Smackdowns, I believe it is. So Cena's around, and he's going to be on the Grayson Waller effect. So we'll see where that goes. I think it's leading to, which will pop me very much. it's leading to John Cena and LA Knight versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, which, on the heel side, it could be a bit more liveful, but just the idea of Cena and LA Knight tagging pops me very much.
It's fun. I'm sure Cena will be able to do his deal. It's like, Grayson will do a big promo and Cena will do his fine speech and tip his cap and one will cheer. So,
nice.
These are the games we play.
Always nice.
It'll be fun.
It's always
Yeah,
nice.
he always gets a huge reaction. It's always cool when he comes back, legitimately.
Speaking of huge reactions, and someone was just talking about it, LA Knight rematch with the Miz, John. I know you've been looking forward to this one.
I was a little bit late on that. Sorry, Moné. I haven't been looking forward to this, actually. That was a lie, but I might watch it. LA Knight is a level of over where I think he could probably wrestle me and we'd be okay out there. Maybe not me, maybe you, but he's so over. He really doesn't have to do anything. His matches are over in the building, which is enough. The match with the Miz from the pay-per-view, I did not think was a Mac classic by any means. It was pretty middling and too long, but you can't argue with the crowd reaction, right? I mean, they love him right now. So hopefully that happens again here. I'd prefer the match is just actually better, but even if it isn't, let's be honest, the crowd's going to love it. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be all right out there, I'll see. Not much else on the Smackdown preview, though. We'll see what they've got for us. I'm sure we're going to get some... we'll get some more Heyman and Jimmy Uso and Charlotte Flair and your usual stuff, But on Rampage, Lucha Bros and Hardys versus Jeff Jarrett, Lethal, and Butcher and the Blade. Kingdom versus Matt Sydal and Daniels.
That's one in a circle, folks.
Yeah.
It's one in a circle. That's some real graps potentially there.
And then we've got the Acclaimed, Daddy Ass versus the Outrunners and Peter Avalon.
Only a circle, that one. You'll be all right.
And, of course, the main event, Jade Cargill versus Chris Statlander.
Who you got, Monty?
Honestly, though, I've heard very good things about this match, though.
Same.
It's one of the best matches of Jade's career, so, two horse women out there.
There were live reports on Wednesday that said this was the best match of the night. I'm kind of fascinated by how this comes out.
I'm kind of locked in for it,
Yeah. It's a weird situation. Seeing them post their graphic this morning for this match and all the replies being what they are was it's kind of like a bygone era. A major promotion having a tape show that has this weird of a kind of fallout in between. I mean, it's not quite MLW where they post shows from February and at Christmas, but it's still pretty quirky. I'm going to watch this, I think. Intrigues me.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah. I'm into it.
It'll be a very good time, I'm sure. But Collision. Let's talk about the Collision.
Elton John.
Saturday. Bryan Danielson and Claudio versus Ricky Starks and Big Bill. This should be really good. I'd be quite disappointed if it wasn't, to be honest. Joe. Blackpool Combat Club. Bryan and Claudio getting to tag. I ain't going to complain.
Yeah, I like it. I do wish that the Claudio part of this had waited until after Eddie presumably beat him. That was kind of a little bit of a clunky part of Wednesday for me, but I like the match a lot. I'm really happy for Big Bill, who I think is doing a hell of a job and deserves a lot of credit for his story. I think it's actually a really positive kind of success story that's emerged over the last couple of years. And I'm also really glad that Ricky's getting some follow-up as a TV character, right? He's been on the shows, and that's a really positive sign coming out of the pay-per-view. So this should be really good.
Yeah, definitely. The Eddie King, the way they've done this Eddie Kingston stuff is it's quite as good as it is. It's frustrating because it's not enough of it. It almost feels like to the side,
Yeah, they could have done much better.
It's very weird.
They haven't really told the story on TV either. It's kind of muddied. If you just watch the TV show, and I'm aware that most of the AEW audience is clued in, but on the TV show, it's not been told the most coherent way. And
absolutely
I think they could have done a much better job with it, which is a shame because I love their dynamic and I can't wait to see them wrestle. I just wish that it had a little more juice going in. Luckily, Eddie is so beloved. It won't even matter. You saw it on Wednesday when they went face to face. The people started chanting Eddie for their little backstage, you know, like people were into Eddie winning the belt, and hopefully he does win. Because otherwise, I mean, if Eddie doesn't win here, it's like, what's the point, man? Dude's just talking shit to a guy who beats his ass every time, you know. So hopefully Eddie gets the job done on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, he best to.
Yeah.
He best to. Yeah, man. What else we got on Collision? FTR versus the Iron Savages. Part of the FTR World Tag Team Challenge, Open Challenge that they are doing. And they're kicking it off with the Iron Savages. God bless. But yeah, Joe, from what I hear, FTR, you know, they went to the boys that make the decisions, and they give the boys that make a decision a list of tag teams that they are interested in working with, young tag teams, up and coming tag teams,
Are we on the list?
and and of course, obviously, evidently, Iron Savages were part of this list, and it was one of the teams that Tony and the powers that be have decided that they want to see FTR in there with. So interesting to see what FTR get out of them. Kind of,
Yeah.
FTR get put in these matches sometimes. Remember, like when they were going like the AEW Dark Run,
Oh yes,
and
I do.
they would wrestle
Yes,
people
I
like
do.
fucking waves and curls and shit.
Bro,
You know,
that was when they found Toa Leona. That was when they got him. It was because he was a local, and they gave him a big comeback in the match. It was awesome. So yeah, no, I'm intrigued by this. I do not particularly like the Iron Savages act, but I do like them as a tag team inside the ropes.
you put that
So
very
yeah, I don't like the act
diplomatic
at
there.
all. I mean, yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but I like them as a team. Like, I like Bear Country. I think the act is kind of goofy. I mean, I know that's the point, but like the parody thing is kind of lame to me. But that's just me. I know a lot of people are into it.
Ibu giving us fucking Smackdown and
He's very excited. Yeah, he's very excited. Money, while you do some news, I'll be back in a moment. I'll be back, folks. I apologize. I have to run.
is this what you assume? Oh, those damn kids. Anyway, people. Okay, I'm going to get into this little thing that's just came up. If you've been watching the screen, you may have noticed I've been looking down at my phone for the past couple of minutes, and it's because The Rock is on the Pat McAfee show at the moment, or has just finished up on the Pat McAfee show, and he's just said that Roman Reigns versus The Rock was locked in at one point for WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood. He's also mentioned that he would be open to being on WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia as well. So I don't know if that's just the writer's strike talking, you know. But yeah, The Rock versus Roman Reigns at one point was planned for, you know, WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood, which of course we didn't know. We knew it was talked about. We knew WWE was trying to make it happen, but we never knew what the Rock's final decision was, or if it was ever actually not planned. And it seems like it was actually planned. So don't know why it actually fell apart in the end. I'm sure The Rock mentions in the Pat McAfee interview, of course, because I'm live right now. I'm not able to listen to it in full, but yeah, The Rock versus Roman Reigns seems like it still could be possible. I hilariously went straight to The Rock and Roman Reigns the second you left, John.
The Rock. What happened? Did I miss something?
As we've been live, he's been doing the Pat McAfee show, and he basically just because I'm repeating myself now.
Okay, no, don't worry, it's fine.
He said that him and Roman Reigns was locked in at one point for WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood, and he's also open to WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia.
Good for
Big
him.
hitters, brother. Big business.
You know, I forget that we always do these shows at 11 p.m. And that's why no one is ever at my door. And I predicted exactly to Monty what would happen during the show, and it actually came to fruition, which was very funny. But yeah, I'm excited that Rock news broke while I was gone. Kind of sums up really my form as of late. So that's good stuff.
God bless. But yeah, man, it's big business, mate. Big business.
Mm-hmm. I would say so. Yeah, that's a pretty big match.
Pretty big.
Pretty big.
It could possibly main event even.
It might do a number, that one. You know, it's pretty big. It's a pretty big deal.
But yeah, Joe Ibu was doing scoops during the in the live show. He said
He was.
Ibu, of course, those of you may know him better as Backup Hangman on Twitter.com. LA Knight versus John Cena. LA Knight and John Cena versus Grayson Waller and Fury on SmackDown. Something to look forward to. And he also, this is quite a big one, really. Cena and Styles versus Roman and Solo at Fastlane.
I don't know.
Well, Dave reported earlier that he's not wrestling until November, and Fastlane is before Saudi, isn't it?
Cena's
Think so.
matches are.
Oh, God bless.
I just
That's genuinely me reacting watching them.
the last time he did a tag with Roman, it was
The most beast fucking
it was
performance from a
beast.
top star ever. Just
He was doing
taking.
color commentary on the apron.
Yeah, man, fucking John Cena just on the apron, rolling up the crowd, get a hot tag at the end, hit the 5 moves of doom, and get out of there, bro. That's
It'll
fucking
probably be
beast.
cool. It's a cool match on paper, at least. So
Yeah,
I do. I worry a little bit about where AJ's at. Like, so I've been a huge fan. I do think the decline is like really noticeable whenever I see him now. But in a situation like that against big stars, alongside big stars, I think it'll be fine. I hope it'll be fine. Anyway,
it ain't like. I got a couple of super chats. Manny the Hooper, our brother, 199. Appreciate you. Glad Jade is leaving AEW because of Punk. this beat Manny's been doing the past 24 hours, where he came across an interview clip of Jade Cargill saying that Punk was helping her and stuff like that. And he's now decided that is the reason why Jade is leaving AEW, because Punk was fired,
Manny the Hooper being like, his only thing he cares about wrestling is, are they Hoopers or not? But being a CM Punk stan is one of the funniest things Manny is. And like, again, I say this, I love CM Punk's work, but he feels like the antithesis of what would pop Manny, right? Like he isn't particularly explosive or dynamic. He doesn't have like
it's
cool
just
moves.
real though.
He is,
bro. You see that video of him blading at Wembley?
Oh my god, blading ain't a word for it, brother. That was insane.
Boy, Manny the Hooper loves CM Punk.
That's fair enough. That was. I guess that's just how he does it.
He was just.
You see him had to like work himself up. Like, oh fuck, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. And again, to be clear, like your description of him, but Hooper is very specific with things. It just pops me. This is the hill he chose to die on. I respect it.
Beast. Cody Wills. Appreciate you. 199. Pat is live in Colorado. Smackdown is in Colorado. Yeah, it wouldn't. Now that you've just pointed that out, it wouldn't surprise me at all, to be honest, if we got a bit of Pat on Friday Night Smackdown and Michael Cole gets to pop and get surprised by it like last time.
He gets very excited. Yeah, he gets very excited.
He really likes him, man. And apparently last time it was a genuine surprise when Pat came out. So,
that's cool.
That's nice. Karan, 100 rupees. Appreciate you as always. The Hulbert has returned. Time to rejoice. Joe, hope that OVW doc is going well. Let's talk about it. Joe, give me some highlights. I've not seen it yet.
All right. Spoilers, folks. If you're going to watch this, just mute for a second and I'll wave at the camera when we're done. One of the early hooks for the show, this is going to sell you, I think, on this one immediately. And it's never followed up on, is that Al establishes that they need to sell 500 pay-per-views to break even. And like, I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, there's no way they're going to sell 500 pay-per-views, right? Like, there's just not. I don't know anyone who watches OVW, and I'm doing wrestling podcasts. There's no way they sell 500 pay-per-views. So they do this 2-episode arc about 500. They show a graph, 500. And bro, the announcer logs on to the Zoom call with this Fight TV dude, and he's like, "So what was our buy rate?" And dude's like, "He sold 74." Like in my chair, like arms went out, and I was so upset they never got Al's reaction to this number. There's one moment where Al's looking at the house and there's no one there, and he has his hands on his head and he goes, What are we missing here? I've got the puzzle pieces in play. I mean, it's just what dreams are made of. It's classic wrestling in that there's a bloke who has decided to fund this project. He's losing like $30,000 a month. And he shows up to the tapings and goes, what if we do this? And all the wrestlers go, what does this arsehole know? He's not a wrestler. He's not a wrestler. It's like, I mean, he might not know a lot, but to be fair, it's not exactly a triumph around here. The same money man at one point suggests a working relationship with AEW, to which Al gets like actively insulted and says it would be a one-way street, which is it's OVW, brother. What you... but it's wrestling in every which way.
It sounds
It's the
very
most
artistic.
Oh, it's wonderful, and like, honestly, on a sincere level, it's really well made. There are parts of it that are for a mainstream audience that I like aren't really for me, and kind of unnecessary for someone who's as deep in as I am. But the parts when they do get deep, and start talking about like James Storm's booking fee and whether he's going to sell enough tickets to make it back, that's when I'm in my element. Watching these dipshits try and figure out whether they should bring in the cowboy James Storm. That's as real as wrestling gets, brother. So it's a hell of a time. I do recommend it for anyone, especially if you like Wrestle Purists Worldwide and you're into that kind of like sicko part of wrestling. You'd probably love this show because Al Snow is just constant performance art on this show. Don't really seem to know what he's doing, but he pops you through out, which is all you can ask for.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
Manny the Hooper, in reference to seeing the clip of Jade Cargill saying very nice things about CM Punk. $4.99 super chat, appreciate it. I was at work yesterday and saw that clip and went on break immediately.
Of course.
I believe
I was supposed to wave. Remember I said I was going to do spoilers for the Netflix thing and then wave after? I didn't wave. No. You're back, folks. All of you that muted. Yeah. Everyone quickly put their headphones down. Shit. He's going to spoil the Netflix show.
I think we can round up though. No, I think we can take it home, Joe. You got anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think I'm all good, mate. I think I'm all good. We had a nice show. We went off the rails a little bit with our big picture talk, but I thought it was a good conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Yeah, man. Good times.
Couple notes, I guess. Literally a couple. PW Insider says that there's a talk of a WWE Performance Center trial in Orlando later this month, perhaps as soon as next week. And there was another thing. Yeah, there was a report about Roman's next match being in Saudi, but of course,
Ibu has followed up.
Ibu, I don't know.
He's clarified.
He's saying the bloodline tag may be Saudi, though. I'll put that up on screen.
Yeah.
And he says, allow me to clarify, that was the proposal as of 10 days ago.
He's doing the plans change bit now, brother. All grown up on us. He's a real scoopster.
Right, let's get out of here, man.
Right, mate.
Friday, later tonight. Okay, no on Purist tonight, people. No on Purist tonight. Hopefully we'll be back next week. Tomorrow, there will be the AEW Collision Watch Along hosted by AO and whoever decides to join him. Sunday, Dumb Guy Live and the Face Off podcast hosted by Israel, Ibu, and AO. So hopefully you can tune in, watch those. We appreciate all those of you who have stuck around with us throughout the start, all the way to the end of this Wrestle Purist Live with myself and Joe Hall. But please like the video if you haven't already. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And we massively appreciate the super chats. It makes these podcasts a lot easier, gives us stuff to talk about and stuff like that. And of course, we always appreciate when you guys part ways with your hard-earned money. But yeah, again, appreciate you for sticking with us. And we will catch you tomorrow on Twitch. Peace.